Thank you very much, Sir Chukan, Sir Lily, and Sir Doris for today's Sunday Pūjā chanting. Back with us this week, we have Brother Ghatikara Loo to share on us on the Majjhima Nikaya 129 on how to differentiate fools and wise men. Over to you, Brother Loo.
Yeah, thank you very much, Brother Terence, and good morning, everyone, brothers and sisters in the Dhamma. I'm indeed very happy this morning, that I'm able to share the Dhamma with you again on this occasion. Okay, so before we begin with today's Dhamma sharing, let us first of all put our palms together in Anjali and pay our highest and deepest homage and respect to the Buddha, the Blessed One, whom through his effort and great sacrifice and compassion, he has rediscovered the path to liberation, and that has enabled us to practice the true Dhamma. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Okay, very good morning again, brothers and sisters in the Dhamma. Okay, so today for today's Dhamma sharing, I've actually selected this sutta, from the Majjhima Nikaya, which is the middle length discourses of the Blessed One. And this is actually from Majjhima Nikaya Sutta number 129. And it is actually a very interesting sutta because the title is actually, to me, it is very interesting. And the words of the title are actually, references that the Buddha, uses very often. If you actually read the Nikayas, especially the Pali Canon, you will find that the Buddha, on many occasions actually uses the terms fools and wise men. He always the Blessed One. Sometimes he may encounter whether monastics or lay people, if they do not actually do not actually observe the sila well, or they actually misconstrued or misunderstood or misapprehended, what the Buddha actually has taught, and then they actually quoted the Dhamma wrongly, or they actually hold very evil, pernicious views about the Dhamma, then the Buddha, usually the Buddha, is actually very compassionate and full of loving kindness. But on such situations where the Buddha finds that someone actually misrepresents him, and misquotes him, in respect of the Dhamma, then the Buddha becomes very stern, and he becomes very stern, and he reprimands actually the people concerned, and invariably he uses the word fools or misguided men, so which may be rather harsh, but you must understand the Buddha actually uses such terms out of compassion, for the individuals concerned, either they hold wrong views or they actually misconstrue the Dhamma, or they actually misrepresent the Dhamma, or they practice in ways which are not in accordance with the Dhamma. The Buddha actually has compassion, for such individuals. That's why he has to use language which tends to be rather harsh. So he uses words like fools and misguided men, So we need to understand, that context. So the question now is, actually, who actually is a fool and who is actually a wise man, in accordance, based on, what the Buddha has actually taught in the suttas. And before we begin the sutta, the proper sutta today, which is MN129, if you actually look through the Pali Canon and you actually read, if you have the time and the means to really look through what the Buddha has actually taught in the various suttas, you'll find that this usage of the word fools and wise men are actually used quite often, in many of the suttas. For example, if you actually look at Khuddaka Nikaya, the minor collection of the Buddha, and this, if you go to the Khuddaka Pata, Sutta number 5, there is this famous Mangala Sutta, right, which I think everybody knows, right? Mangala Sutta, where, there was one day, where there was this celestial being, a Devata, he actually wants to find out exactly, what the highest blessings are, for gods and as well as human beings, And one day, he actually descended, to earth, and he actually asked the Blessed One, what are these the highest blessings? Everybody actually speculates about highest blessings. So what exactly are the highest blessings? So the Buddha actually gave this very famous and very inspiring, sutta about his blessings, the Mangala Sutta, and the Buddha actually enumerated 38 highest blessings. If you go through the sutta itself, and if you actually go to this sutta itself in stanza 2, the second stanza of this Mangala Sutta, the Buddha actually utters these words. He says, Asevanacha balanam, panditanancha sevana, So actually, these two verses are the beginning of this 38 highest blessings. And what did the Buddha actually mean here? The Buddha says, by these two Pali verses, right? The Buddha says not to associate with fools. No, do not associate with fools. No, and to associate with the wise. So you see, at the very beginning of this 38 highest blessings, already, the Buddha actually, brings about this wise men and and the fools, and asks us not to associate and to actually distance ourselves from fools. But to associate, and to increase our associations with the wise, to increase our spiritual energy, spiritual values by associating, more and more with the wise, so that we actually increase, our energy, our level of spirituality, by associating with the wise, and do not associate and try to, distance yourself from the fools. So you see, the very first stanza itself, actually, this is second stanza, but the first two blessings the Buddha actually enumerates. With these two Pali stanzas, we can see very clearly, the Buddha places a lot of emphasis in terms of, who actually are wise and who actually are fools. And if you look at the suttas also, just trying to remember, like for example, in this Majjhima Nikaya number 38, if you actually look at it, this sutta that's called the Mahatanha Sankaya Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya Sutta number 38, where there is this very also interesting discourse, which actually recorded about this disciple of the Buddha. His name was Sati. He was actually the son of a fisherman. And this Sati actually held a very evil, pernicious view. This Diti Kata, this evil, pernicious view, not just Micha Diti, not just a wrong view, but it's an evil, pernicious view. This Diti Kata, about consciousness. He actually holds the views that this consciousness is actually the same consciousness that transmigrates from one life to another, means that this consciousness actually is the very same consciousness that actually, that actually experiences the suffering and also the pleasure, depending on the good or bad karma that you have done. It is this very same consciousness that actually transmigrates from one life to another, and he holds that this consciousness is actually does have a permanent everlasting self, something very much like the soul that other religions actually teach, that, we all have to have this permanent, fixed, unchanging soul that actually, upon, say, dissolution of a body, this soul, this permanent soul actually goes to heaven or to hell, depending on whether you have faith, in the God, that they pay homage to. And also the actions they have done, so this they have this permanent everlasting soul, that will actually experience happiness in the heaven or hell, And so this Sati actually held this view, that this soul actually was permanent, where when the Blessed One actually has taught, in the in his Dhamma discourses that this vijnana, this consciousness is actually what? It's actually dependently a reason through causes and conditions, and therefore it's non-self. But this Sati actually held the view that it was actually permanent, and he had a self. So because of that, the Buddha, when the Buddha, of course, summoned him, and asked him, so is it true, that I heard from others that you actually held this view about this vijnana having a permanent, unchanging self, Then he said, yes, I hold on to this view, Then the Buddha became very stern, and reprimanded him and said, you misguided man, you fool, that since when did you ever hear me teach, consciousness as having a self? a permanent, unchanging self. Didn't I teach you that, consciousness is dependently a reason between the internal, external sense object, and when the sense base is there, and when consciousness is there, when the consciousness, the internal, external come together, then you actually have, this this contact. So consciousness is actually dependently a reason, because of the what internal, external sense object, and you avert your attention to it, then there's consciousness, right? So how can you say that consciousness arises without conditions? So we see the Buddha actually uses this word, fool and misguided man, in this Majjhima Nikaya 38, and also in the Majjhima Nikaya number 22. There is this sutta about the water snake simile, the Alagadupama Sutta. And in this sutta is about this uh uh man, he was actually the disciple of the Buddha. His name was Arita. He was actually a monk, Arita. And this Arita, he actually held, again, a pernicious view. This Titigata, evil pernicious view, that sense pleasure is not not actually an impediment. In the spiritual life, it does not obstruct the spiritual development. Because he actually saw during the Buddha's time that there were actually many sotapannas, stream enterers, who actually enjoyed family life. I mean, they had spouse, they actually had children, they had wives, they beget children, they enjoy family lives, yet they are actually sotapannas, they're stream enterers. So he actually held this view. Actually, sense pleasure and sensual pleasure is not really an impediment. I can still enjoy sensual pleasure, but I can still progress in my spiritual life. So then the Buddha, of course, summoned him again, and of course, told him, asked him, he said, you fool, misguided man, when did you ever hear me, teach that sense pleasure is not, is not an impediment? Didn't I actually teach you about, the uh those the 10 shackles that have to be uprooted, if you want to actually descend, ascend, go higher up, in your spiritual life, as you want to ascend and go higher in your spiritual development, you actually have to eradicate sensual pleasure, and that is actually one of the hallmarks, of an anagami. How can you then say that sensual pleasure is not an impediment? All the 10 factors which I taught you, didn't I actually teach you, the fourth factor itself, the sensual pleasure itself, is a factor that needs to be overcome. And the anagami, the third stage saint, actually is able to overcome this sensual pleasure as well as hatred, right? To become an anagami. So then, of course, the Buddha actually reprimanded him. So in this sutta, MN22, Majjhima Nikaya Sutta number 22, again, the Buddha uses the word fools, and misguided man. So that's why we see in the suttas, on many occasions, the Buddha actually uses, the references, to fools and wise men. So that's why it's very important to actually for us to know, who exactly is a fool, and who exactly is a wise man. And like now, we are actually the Chinese New Year is around the corner, and most of the time we wish each other, a lot of these worldly blessings. Like for example, may you actually have wealth, prosperity, may you actually, may all your dreams come true, whatever you dream of, may you actually get what you want, may everything turn out well for you, may the highest blessings go to you. We always say such words of auspicious words, and blessings during Chinese New Year, But actually, more often than not, we actually neglect something that's very, very important, which is to wish someone to be wiser, in the Chinese New Year, to be a wise person, to have more wisdom, to be less of a fool, to have wisdom. Because if you become more wiser and become increase in wisdom, invariably, whatever you do will be auspicious and will be wholesome, and definitely you actually get whatever worldly blessings you want. So it doesn't matter if someone doesn't wish you, all these blessings during Chinese Year, because if you are wise and if you actually perform and conduct yourself in accordance with the Dhamma, and if you are wise, definitely you get all these blessings. It's just like the Buddha in the sutta says, like for example, a hen, is actually trying to trying to incubate the eggs, try to warm the eggs so that the eggs will hatch, right? The chicks will come up, will hatch from the eggs. So it doesn't matter whether the hen actually, makes all these wishes and good blessings to the eggs, that may you hatch, may the good chicks hatch. But as long as the hen actually sits on the eggs and starts to warm the eggs all the time, diligently and conscientiously, don't you think that the eggs will actually hatch eventually? Right. It doesn't matter if nobody wishes the chicks, blessings when may you actually have good birth, and may you actually come up well. It doesn't matter as long as the hen sits on and incubates the eggs. Definitely, the chicks will actually hatch. From the eggs. So similarly, for us, it does not matter if someone doesn't actually wish you all these worldly blessings, as long as you increase your wisdom and you become wiser, and you cultivate yourself to increase the wisdom, and you conduct yourselves appropriately in accordance with what the Buddha has taught. Definitely, you beget all these worldly blessings, more than anybody can wish for you. So that's why in this coming Chinese New Year, I hope that all of us will become wiser. We increase in wisdom. But first of all, we need to know, exactly, who is wise, and who is a fool, right? So for this, perhaps let me just share my screen so that I can actually go through this sutta with you, on this um MN129. Hold on. Okay, let me share with you this sutta, which is MN129. Okay, my apologies that I need to use this sutta MN129 as translated by Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi, because I find the translations here, are more suitable, and easier to be understood, as compared to the versions found in Sutta Central and Access to Insight. But in fact, Access to Insight doesn't carry MN129, but Sutta Central, the versions there, somehow I find the translations are also good, but I prefer, the translation by Bhikkhu Bodhi. So I've actually shown here, which is a PDF version of MN129 from by Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi, and this is actually Bala Pandita Sutta. Bala is actually fool and Pandita is actually wise, wise man, So Bala Pandita Sutta is actually MN129. So maybe I'll go through this sutta with you, and I will try to share, what the Buddha has actually taught in this sutta with you. And so this sutta begins by saying, of course, based on what Venerable Ananda actually has heard, from the Buddha, and also what he has seen, so he said, "Thus have I heard, on one occasion, the Blessed One was living in Savatthi in Chetas Grove in Anathapindika's park, there he addressed the bhikkhus, and the bhikkhus, of course, replied by saying, Bhante, yes, Bhante, and the Buddha continued by saying, there are these three characteristics of a fool, signs of a fool, attributes of a fool. So the Buddha is describing who a fool is, and what three. Here, a fool is one who thinks bad thoughts. Means he always think of unwholesome thoughts, speaks unwholesome words, and does unwholesome deeds. So by body, speech, and mind, he's inclined, and he has this preponderance. He's inclined to actually conduct themselves, in unwholesome ways by body, speech, and mind. See, so the first thing the Buddha actually has really outlined, who a fool is. A fool is somebody who does unwholesome actions, by body, speech, and mind. He did. Whether it's in terms of dana, sila, bhavana, in terms of, safeguarding your virtues, your sila, whether it's actually guarding your minds, safeguarding your mind, in terms of, whatever that, that in accordance with the Dhamma, this fool does not follow, and he actually does all these unwholesome things, in three ways, in body, speech, and mind. If a fool were not so, how would the wise know of him thus? This person is a fool and untrue man. But because a fool is one who thinks this body, speech, and mind unwholesome ways, so the wise man actually knows that this person is indeed a fool and a true man. See, and the Buddha continues, a fool feels pain and grief here and now in three ways. The Buddha says, if this fool actually experiences pain, and grief, here and now, even in this life in three ways. And how is this so? The Buddha says, if a fool is seated in assembly or along a street or in a square and people there are actually discussing, relevant matters, then if this fool, is someone who actually kills living beings, he actually takes the lives of beings, deliberately, knowingly, and he also does takes what is not given. He steals, and he misconducts himself in sensual pleasures, sexual misconduct. Speaks falsehood. He actually likes to actually utter things which are actually not true. For his own gain or gain of others. So he actually speaks of falsehood knowingly, and he actually tells a deliberate lie. So in this case, in this instance, I must actually highlight that when you when you say falsehood, it must be something, but that must be a deliberate lie. It cannot be something that you utter, because you thought it was true, but it turns out to be false. But that itself is not actually uttering falsehood, because you were under the impression that it was true. But if you knew that it was untrue and you still spoke something that was actually untrue, then that itself becomes a deliberate lie, because you know that it's not true, but you deliberate say it, so it becomes, a falsehood. But if you didn't know, then it's actually not a falsehood. And he actually indulges, in wine, liquor, and intoxicants. Taking intoxicants, wine, liquor, and actually intoxicates the mind, which are the basis of negligence. So when he actually does all these, breaks the 5 precepts, then he thinks these people are discussing these relevant matters, and these 5 things regarding the breaking of 5 precepts are found in me, and I'm seen engaging in those things. So you see, when you actually hear someone discussing about, that it's very evil to do such things, do not kill, and do not steal, and then it's evil or to unwholesome to do sexual misconduct, So when you hear such things being spoken, and naturally you feel very uneasy, because you know that I do such things, right, and I perform such things, and naturally you feel like the guilty conscience, welling up in you, and you try, to actually avoid these people who talk about such matters, right? And you don't want to listen to them, because you know that you have done such things. So you have this pain in your heart, in your mind. So this is the first pain that the Buddha says this fool actually experiences. Again, the second pain, the Buddha says, when the robber culprit is caught, this robber culprit, the one that does a lot of this um, evil deeds, this robber, he actually goes around robbing people, killing, snatching, properties from others, and and a fool will sees kings having many kinds of torture inflicted on him. He see this robber culprit, and this robber culprit is being caught by the king, and the king actually imposes a lot of this punishment, onto this culprit, having him flogged with whips, beaten with canes, with clubs, with his hands cut off. Last time, in the olden days, the king actually had, wielded a lot of this power. He could, inflict any punishment on anyone that he deemed fit. And he could actually have the hands cut off, the feet, cut off, his hands and feet cut off, his ears cut off, his nose cut off, his ears and nose cut off, and subjected to the porridge pot. Means being actually boiled alive in the porridge, a pot, and to the porridge cell shave, to the Rahu's mouth, I believe this Rahu's mouth is like, a guillotine, where you place your head onto this Rahu, like something like a creature, a Rahu, and once the knife befalls on your head, that's when you're decapitated. Rahu's mouth, to the fury wear a wreath, means that you're made to wear a wreath, but it's full of fire and you're being burned alive. Flaming hand, blades of grass, bark dress, antelope, to meat hooks, means you're being hung upside down, with meat hooks. Meat hooks are like like meat hook, like those carcasses which are being hung upside down, to the coins, to lie pickling, to the pivoting pin, to roll up, palliers, palliers is a straw mat, so you're being rolled up in the palliers, and maybe you're burned alive, or possibly, this is what I think. and having him splash with boiling oil. It means boiling oil, like really oil that's boiling, they splash you with boiling oil. Can you imagine that? Or your skin is all burnt alive, and having him thrown to be devoured by dogs. Means they have all these hungry, fierce dogs, which are famished and haven't eaten for days. They just throw you to the dogs. And these dogs are something like those wild jungle dogs. They're not like your domesticated dogs. These are really like wild jungle dogs that have got like really sharp teeth and, that will just tear your flesh and eat you alive. And after that, having him impaled alive on sticks means they'll just, throw the stakes and impale you, and poke you with spears, and stakes, and having your head cut off with a sword. That means that they tie you and then they just use a very sharp sword and just decapitate you, with a sword. And the full things, because of such evil actions as those when the robber culprit is caught. For example, this robber culprit, performs like, killing, stealing, sexual misconduct and do all these evil deeds, the king, have many kinds of tortures inflicted upon him. They have him flogged, with whips, and have his head, cut off with a sword. And he said that these things are found in me, and I'm seen engaging in those very same things that this robber culprit has done. So he feels that he feels the pain in him, that one fine day I'll actually have this pain as well. This is the second kind of pain and grief that a fool feels here and now, And thirdly, the Buddha says again, when the fool is on his chair, on his bed, and resting on the ground. For example, when the fool, whenever he has he takes a rest, maybe from his busy day, he feels very tired. Then he decides to just sit on a chair, and try to just and try to rest and rest on the ground. Then whenever his mind comes to a more of a calm state or a restful state, then what happens is invariably all these evil actions that he has done in the past will all flash back to him. The memories of all the evil deeds he has done will flash back to him. Like video cameras, like a replay, a rewind of all the things that you have done. Everything will come and inundate you and flood you. Like flush of all these images. That all the evil things you have done by body, speech, and mind cover him, overspread him and envelop him, just as the shadow of a great mountain peak in the evening, when you see a great mountain like, great Mount Himalaya, or the, great mountains in the world, if you actually see, sunset, when the sun actually casts the shadow, shine onto these great mountain peaks, then, this great mountain peak actually the shadow, right, actually covers the shadow that's formed by this great mountain actually covers, overspreads and envelops the earth. So the whole mass of earth are actually covered by this shadow of this great mountain peak. The Buddha says, see, the similar is so apt, that's so suitable. So too, when a fool is on his chair, on his bed, resting on the ground, then these evil actions that did in the past, when better by body, speech, and mind, will come back to him. Everything will just come back to you, cover him, overspread him, envelop him. You see, then the fool thinks, I have not done what is good. I have not done what is wholesome. I have not made myself a shelter from anguish. Means you have not given yourself any shelter. You are actually like somebody who's totally without any supplies. When you go on a long journey, you are totally helpless. You have no food. You have no supplies. You have no money, you have nothing to actually protect yourself, you have no shelter. I have done what is evil, I have done what is cruel, I have done what is wicked. When I pass away, I shall go to the destination who have not done or what is good, who have done what is wicked. He sorrows, grieves, and laments. He weeps, beating his breast, and becomes distraught. This is the kind of pain and grief that the fool feels here and now. So you see, whenever you actually sit down, when when your mind is not clouded by anything and your mind becomes calmer, that's when all these images and all these thoughts and memories of all these evil deeds will come back to you. See, so a fool, actually does all this, and this is the pain that he gets, and not to mention a deathbed, whatever that you have done will get rewound, like like a video player, you get rewound, everything gets played back to you again, telling you what you have done. It's a very automatic thing because all these are energies driven, and you cannot stop it. So because your mind actually is inclined towards that, and therefore your mind will just replay, whatever images of all the actions you have done, and the next destination will become apparent to you. So it's all energy driven. So you see, a fool who has given himself over to misconduct of body, speech, and mind on the dissolution of the body reappears in a state of deprivation in unhappy destination and even in hell. You see, the Buddha actually, reminds us, and highlights to us, and gives us this warning bell, this wake up call, that there is this three pains that this fool actually experiences. The pain that he actually when somebody discusses about all these evil deeds, and then he sees this culprit, this evil culprit, this someone who has done a lot of evil deeds being punished, and then he says that this will happen to me, and he also thinks about all whenever he recollects all the bad actions and evil things he have done, all this will flash back to him, So I see the three pains that he experiences. So why put yourself to such pain? Isn't he a fool? When you can actually, be happy, and be contented, if you become a wise man. So the Buddha says, if you choose to be a fool yourself, then you have to get ready, to actually experience these three fools. I mean, it's fair and square, okay? So when the Buddha actually talks about this fool, upon the dissolution of his body after death, he reappears in a state of deprivation, in an unhappy destination in a woeful plain in a Dugati Bhumi. In Dugati means a very, very unhappy. Sugati means very good, very happy. Su means good. Do means not good. Dugati is something that's not good. You actually descend downwards. You go down. Into the woeful plains. And even in hell. So then the Buddha goes on to actually highlight to you, how wretched and how terrible, rebirth in hell is. So, if you think, hell is just a myth, and it's just something to scare people, to not to do evil deeds, think again. This is what the Buddha actually says, and it's based on what he has seen for himself, using his psychic power, using his Sabbanyutta Yana, he's able to see all this using his Buddha eye, and he's able to see this with his psychic power, how hell is like, and he's telling you firsthand, based on what he sees, not based on what some devas tell him, And the Buddha says, Buddha says, were it rightly speaking to be said of anything, this is utterly unwished for, This is utterly undesired, utterly disagreeable, something that's really, you really don't want to be there at all, It's utterly horrible, utterly wretched, utterly terrible, utterly disagreeable, that nothing else can be worse than this, really. It's just the worst of the worst, It is of hell, that's rightly speaking, this should be said. The Buddha said that if there's anything that's really cannot be worse than worst, it is actually hell. So much so that it is hard to find a simile for the suffering in hell. The Buddha says you cannot find a simile to describe how terrible hell is. And when this was said, a bhikkhu asked the Blessed One, but what, Bhante, can a simile be given? But Bhante, can a simile be given? Can you try to at least give us an idea? It's kind of like a visual understanding, exactly how terrible hell is. Then the Buddha says, it can, bhikkhu, the Blessed One said, bhikkhus, suppose man caught a robber, the people caught a robber culprit, presented him to the king, and say, sire, here is a robber culprit, order whatever punishment you will for him. Then the king said, go and strike him in the morning with 100 spears, means you actually use 100 spears and strike this man with 100 spears, because of all the evil things he's done, right? Then this Buddha, the king told this man, strike him with 100 spears, because of all these evil deeds. Then at noon, the king asked this man again, hey, how is that man? Then his soldiers, all these men, his followers told the king, Sire, he's still alive, Then the king said, go and strike that man at noon with 100 spears. Again, since he's not dead, right? The king said, go again and strike him with 100 spears. Just impale him and stroke him. Put 100 spears, through his body. 100 spears. And again, the man struck him. At noontime, they struck him with 100 spears. Then in the evening, the king asked the man again, the soldiers again, hey, how is that culprit? This culprit, who did all these evil deeds? How is that man? Then the soldier said, Sire, he's still alive, Then the king said to the man, go and strike that man in the evening again with 100 spears. Again, they struck him in the evening with 100 spears. And then what do you think, bhikkhus? Would that man experience pain and grief because of being struck with the 300 spears? 100 in the morning, 100 in the noon, and 100, in the evening, So what do you think? Would this man, this culprit, actually experiences intense pain and grief? Then the monk said, Bante, that man will experience pain and grief because of being struck with even one spear. Can you imagine being struck by one spear when somebody drives one spear into your body, whichever part, your limbs or your body or what? Can you imagine one spear is being struck into your body? That itself is really so much intense pain, let alone 300 spears, right? The Buddha is giving this simile. Then the Buddha, he takes a small stone the size of his hand, and he actually tells the bhikkhus, what do you think, bhikkhus, which is greater, this small stone that I have taken, by the size of my hand, or the Himalaya, the king of the mountains, Also, at the time, the Buddha actually asked, which is actually more, the stone that I have in my hand, or this great, mountains of Himalayas, the king of the mountains, Himalaya? Then the monk said, Bante, the small stone that the Blessed One has taken, the size of his hand, does not count beside Himalaya, the king of the mountains. It's not even a fraction. There's no comparison. You compare a small stone with, Himalaya, where the Mount Everest and king. Of course, that small stone is nothing. It's just not even a small fraction. Then the Buddha says, so too, bhikkhus, the pain and grief the man will experience because of being struck with the 300 spears does not count beside the suffering of hell. It's not even a fraction. There's no comparison, can you imagine 300 spears being struck by, into your body? Is nothing, compared to the suffering in hell, just like a small stone that the Blessed One holds in his hand as compared to the great Himalayan mountains. You can imagine, You see, then the Buddha goes on to describe, now the wardens of hell torture him with a fivefold transfixing. They drive a red-hot iron stake through one hand, they drive a red-hot iron stake through the other, means they drive all these iron stakes, red-hot, into the limbs, your hands, left and right. And then they also drive this red hot, burning red hot iron stake, into your both feet, your left and your right feet. And they also drive this red hot through his belly, into the belly itself, so this five stakes, into your limbs, into your belly, because and they are being actually driven and struck into your body, practically they just use the red hot and just push into your body, then this man, this person who is actually born in the hell, he feels painful, racking, piercing feeling. Yes, yet he does not die, so long as that evil action has not exhausted its result. Means that the vipaka is not exhausted yet. As long as the vipaka from the karma you have done is not exhausted, you will continue to feel this pain. But the moment you feel the pain in the hell, you can imagine you can feel the pain as though the red hot iron are being driven into your forelimbs and to your belly. These are red hot irons. Next, the warden of hell throw him down and pair him with axes. Means they throw him down and start cutting you and chopping you like chopping minced meat with knives, with maybe machete or whatnot, they then these hell beings use the axes and chop you, or they push you down and then they start chopping you with axes. Can you imagine, you're like mincemeat. There he feels painful, racking, piercing feelings. Yet he does not die as long as that evil action has not exhausted its result. Next, the warden of hell set him with his feet up and put his head down, and means like xiu like pigs, like those they'll do, they like roasted pork, they hang you upside down, the feet at the top and then your head at the bottom, and and uh, and 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 even better, once you're hung upside down, they start paring you, means hitting you, and cutting you with edges, means with axes, there he feels painful, racking, piercing feeling, but he does not die, as long as the evil action has not exhausted its result. See how horrible, how scary it is, that this karma, there's no bargaining with karma, and there's no compassion, that this karma will just basically roll out its result, based on its energy. There's no bargaining with karma, you cannot bargain with karma. As long as the karma there is to roll out its result, you have to experience the vipaka, all of it. There's no running away, And as long as even though you're being cut by axes, strangely, once the wind blows over, your flesh starts to assemble by itself, yet then you become a person again, and you continue to suffer, Then the warden of hell harnessed him to a chariot and drive him back and forth across burning ground, blazing and glowing. Then after that, they tie you to this chariot, not for you to actually enjoy the chariot ride. You're being tied into this chariot at the back, and you're being driven like an animal, being driven back and forth, and not just on nice cozy grass ground. You're being driven across on burning ground, blazing and glowing. The ground is burning, blazing with fire, really hot, and you're being driven around, on this ground. Can you imagine? You feel painful, racking, piercing feeling. Yet he does not die as long as the evil action is not exhausted. You see how scary this karma is. You cannot run away as long as the karma is there. You have to go through this suffering. Then the warden of hell make him climb up and down a great mound of burning coals. In hell, they have all these great, um, mountains are like small hills of burning coals, where they put coals, and they actually start put and the coals start burning, blazing, glowing, and this um mounds of coals, they just burn, they are just there, burning, this evil person is made to climb up the hill, where with all the burning coal, blazing, glowing. Can you imagine his skin is all scarred and being like barbecue, all burned, all charred, but no choice. If you come down, the well wardens are going to use the spear and poke you, right? You have no choice but to go up, and he feels painful, racking feeling, yet he does not die as long as the evil action has not exhausted its result. So you see how terrible it is to be a fool. Next, the wardens of hell take him up and head down and plunge him into a red hot metal cauldron. Means you take your feet up again, your head down, and then basically steam basically like cooking chicken, steaming chicken, or maybe cook what do you call it, cooking the chicken in a pot of hot water, and and this cauldron is actually a big pot, cauldron, it's like a big pot, and this cauldron is burning, blazing, glowing, because of all the fire that's actually heating up the cauldron, so you're actually being being immersed, being deep into this cauldron like chicken, and then he's cooked in a swirl of froth, this because of the intense heat, the water there is like swirling and moving, right, and he's being cooked in the swirl of froth. He's being swept up and down across, like very much like cooking the the like cooking the dumpling, or the winter solstice you eat the yi, you're being cooked, like up and down, in this cauldron. Can you imagine, you're being cooked in such a manner, then he feels a painful, racking, piercing feeling. Can't imagine being cooked like this, and then he does not die, as long as the evil action has not exhausted his result, you see. And next, the warden of hell throw him into the great hell. This great hell, I think I've covered this in my last talk as well, in terms of this, the divine messengers. You see, the description that the Buddha has given on the hell are actually exactly consistent with that sutta, based on what the Buddha has recounted. Exactly the same about all this, hell beings I have to go through, So it's not really, a myth or a mythology, that someone thinks of. See, this is, consistently recorded in the suttas based on what the hell beings, the people born in hell have to go through. It's consistent, and you should actually take note now and be mindful of this, and make sure, this is a wake up call for us. Do not ever be a fool, and do not end up in this situation. Nobody wants to be there. It has four corners. This great hell has got four corners, and it's built with four doors, one set on each side, and this great wall actually has got four walls, and there's four doors, and there's one door in each side, wall up with iron and all around, and shut, with an iron roof. Of course, there's an iron roof on top. Its floor is well made of iron and heated till it glows with fire. Remember last time I told you, this great hell has got this burning and flaming fires, that's actually blowing from east to west, north to south, the top and down. The range is full of, it's one full 100 leagues. This great hell, one league is about 7 km. 100 leagues is about 700 kilometers of this hell. I can't imagine twice the distance more from here to Penang. Twice. Can you imagine how big this hell is? And it covers all pervasively. Because I could tell you in many ways about hell, so much so it's hard to find a simile for the suffering in hell. So the Buddha says, it's unimaginable. You do not want to actually be there. Please, do not be a fool. Be a wise man. And the Buddha actually then goes on to say, because the Buddha then goes on to the other woeful plague, which is what? The animal kingdom. There are animals that feed on grass. They eat by cropping fresh and dried grass with their teeth. And what animals feed on grass? Elephants, horses, cattle, donkeys, goats, and deer, any such animals. A fool who formerly delighted in taste, who's a glutton, who likes to eat a lot, and delight in taste, and did evil actions here, doesn't observe the 5 precepts and did the 10 do charita, 10 unwholesome actions. On the dissolution of the body after death, he reappears in the company of animals that feed on grass. And then the Buddha says, there are animals that feed on dung. They smell dung from a distance and run to it. Dung means excrement. Thinking, we can eat. Can you imagine the animals that actually, they actually like dung, and they actually frolic, and enjoy dung, just as Brahmins are rushed to smell of a sacrifice, thinking, we can eat. I mean, the Buddha was a bit like, in a way, teasing the Brahmins, that they like to sacrifice, right? So I think maybe a bit of sarcasm here, that the smell of sacrifice, thinking we can eat. So too, the animals that feed on dung, the smell of dung from a distance and run to it, thinking we can eat. Can you imagine animals that like dung? Animals that feed on dung are like what? Fowls, pigs, dogs, jackals, and any other animals. A fool who formerly delighted in taste and did evil actions on the dissolution of body after death reappears in the company of animals that feed on dung. So if you want to be animals that like dung and eat dungs, like for example pigs, they like to eat dung. Dogs like to eat dung, and jackals like to eat dung. If you want, then be a fool. And you actually be reborn as an animal that like dung. And then there are animals which are born, die, age and die in darkness. Whether when they are born, they age and die in complete darkness. They never see the day of light. And what animals are born in darkness? The moth, the maggots, the earthworms, or any other animals. See how detailed the Buddha is. A fool who formerly delighted in taste here and did evil actions here and there, and dissolution of the body, reappears in the company of animals, that born, age, and die in darkness. Means for your whole life, you are just shrouded in darkness. You never see the light of day. Nothing. You're completely, in darkness. And then there are animals that are born, age, and die in water. And what animals born, age, and die in water? There's fish, turtles, crocodiles, and any other animals. And again, the Buddha says, if you actually did evil actions, and delight in taste, you also be reborn. as this and like fish, turtles, and crocodiles, and sea snakes, and sharks and all this, right? So you're actually born in water, and animals, and also there are animals that are born in filth, born, age, and die in filth. Their whole life is covered in dirt and filth, And what animals are born in such a condition? Animals, for example, there are animals that actually are born, age, and die in what? Rotten fish, and rotten corpse. When the corpse rotten, you see a lot of these maggots, in the corpse, right? And fish, which are rotten for days, you see a lot of these maggots forming, right? Out of nowhere, they are just born there, perhaps due to water vapor or whatnot, the maggots start to form there, and in rotten dough and in cesspit, or sewer. For example, rotten dough, like you make bread, the dough becomes rotten, so you have this worms and maggots, cesspit, and then sewer means where in sewer and cesspits, you have all this excrement there, and then all these sewer and excrements are actually the heaven, for such animals. They like all this filth, and all the excrement there, they like it, it's their food, So a fool who formerly, delighted in taste and did evil actions, and after death, so be prepared to be born in such conditions. Join them, join these maggots, join these worms, be in their company, and start to feast, on this rotten fish and rotten corpse and excrement in the sewer. So the Buddha says, if you want to behave like that, by all means, it's your choice. Because I could tell you in so many ways about the animal kingdom, so much so that it's hard to find a simile suffering, in the animal kingdom. Suppose a man threw into the sea a yoke with one hole in it, and then the east wind carried to the west, and the west wind carried to the east, and north to the south, and south to the north. So suppose there were a blind turtle that came up once at the end of each century. What do you think? Would a blind turtle put his neck into the yoke, with one hole in it? So of course it's very unlikely, right? I'm sure all of you must have heard about this simile about this blind turtle, being able to put his head through this yoke, this one whole yoke, and he only comes to the surface only 100, years, once only 100 years in this great mass of ocean, what's the likelihood, that his head is able to put into this one whole yoke? Of course, it's very unlikely. And then the bhikkhu said he might, Bhante, sometime or other at the end of a long period. How long? 100 years only once the turtle comes up, and how likely is this that the turtle's head will actually just goes through that one whole yoke, in this great ocean, So the Buddha says, because this blind turtle will take less time to put his neck into that yoke with a single hole in it, then a fool once gone to perdition, means woeful plains, will take to regain the human state. Means what the Buddha says, the time taken for this turtle to even put the head into the yoke is actually less than the time taken for this beings who have gone into the woeful plains, either in the hell, in the animal realm, or or even as a peta. For them to regain a human state is even much longer, much more protracted, much longer, compared to this blind turtle. Can you imagine? Why is that? Because there is no practicing of the Dhamma in the animal kingdom. The Buddha says, have you seen, National Geographic, in terms of the killing, snakes swallowing snakes, and then, crocodile eating up, zebras, lion hunting out antelopes, cheetahs, and all these lions and tigers have to, pounce, on the antelopes just to feed the young, otherwise if you don't kill, they don't actually hunt, the family goes hungry and they die, so they have no choice, they have to kill, and there's no practicing of a Dhamma there, no practicing of what is righteous, it's the animal kingdom, the strong will prevail, the weak will perish, no doing of what is wholesome, and no performance of merit whatsoever, their mutual devouring prevails, means you eat each other up, you gobble each other up, and everybody and every animal is so afraid, they try to run away at the slightest move, slightest sound, they teach their young quickly run, or else become the dinner or supper, or lunch of someone, So, and the slaughter of the weak, the powerful prevails, and the weak, perishes. This is this is how cruel the animal world is. It's like constant mutual devouring. The Buddha says, if sometime or another, after a long period, that fool comes back into the human state, into a human state. Even if somebody, the Buddha says, reborns, one day, the evil karma, in being an animal, it somehow, it actually exhausted for a while, and he becomes a human, And when he becomes a human, he's born into a low family, into a family of outcasts, of hunters, or bamboo workers, or cartwrights, or scavengers, one that's poor with little to eat, drink, surviving with difficulty, where he scarcely finds any food, and he's ugly, unsightly, and he's crippled, he's paralyzed, he's misshapen, either maybe, his hand is, upon birth, maybe he's got polio, he cannot walk straight, he's misshapen, very sickly, maybe he's blind, crippled, and paralyzed, and he actually very difficult to find food, drinks, and clothes. He doesn't even get vehicles, garlands, scents, and unguents, bed, lodgings, and light. He misconducts himself in body, speech, and mind. Because of all these things, right? He has to steal to eat, right? And he has to do a lot of these evil things just to make himself survive, And having done that, on the dissolution of body again, he goes back and joins, his former friends, in all these woeful plains. He's saying hello to them again, back to hell, back to animal kingdom, here I come again. So it's just maybe just a short reprieve, a short time, being a human, but the evil karma, follows him like a shadow, and without stopping, just like the Nangka, it's like come in in bunches, and like bananas come in bunches, they never stop, they follow you one life after another, see, a bhikkhus suppose a gambler at the very first unlucky throw, because this gambler, he has no money already, and he actually gambles using his child and his wife, and his property. He gambles, So if he as the wages are, so he's saying that I gamble my wife, I gamble my child, I gamble my property, If I win, then I win the money. If I lose, then I lose my child and my wife, So in time of last time, in India, you have all these gamblers, and and uh, uh and and he actually throws an unlucky throw, and because of that, he loses, his wife, his children, all the property. The Buddha says, yet an unlucky throw such as that is negligible, means even if you lose your wife or your children or your property, at an unlucky throw of the dice, it is far more unlucky throw when the fool who misconducts himself in body, speech, and mind on the dissolution of the body after death appears in an unhappy destination, even in hell. Means if you end up in the woeful plains, like an animal kingdom in the hell, is much, much, much worse and much, much unluckier compared to you throw a die and you lose your wife, your children, and your property. So this is how the Buddha says, how terrible and how horrible it is to be in woeful plains. This is the complete perfection of the fool's grade. Means if you want to be really a fool, and if you want to complete your perfection of being a fool, means you cultivate yourself such that you become a perfect fool. Then this is the complete perfection. That means that you end up in the woeful plains. You really are a perfect fool. To be reborn in the woeful plains. Then the Buddha goes to the other side of the spectrum. He says, because there are these three characteristics of a wise man. And what three? Again, the Buddha gives these characteristics of the three wise of this wise man. Again, the Buddha gives these three examples. The first one is you see this because he's wise, a wise man actually knows who a wise man is. Because if you're this person is a wise man, a true, here it says, but because a wise man is one who thinks good thoughts, speak good words and speak good deeds, the wise man knows him thus that this person is a wise man, true man. So the Buddha actually starts off by saying a wise man is somebody who actually thinks of what? Wholesome bodies, speech and mind, who conducts himself, wholesome, in wholesome ways by body, speech and mind, You see, and the Buddha says a wise man enjoy pleasure and joy, in three ways. And what is this three ways? It's the same examples. The Buddha says, when the wise man is seated in assembly, when people are talking about, the five precepts, how the sufferings and the pain that come, from observing the five, from breaking the five precepts, from actually not following, and breaking the five precepts. What are the sufferings and the pain, that you actually that you suffer, if you don't observe your five precepts. So when this wise man thinks, actually observe my five precepts, so therefore, I'm actually quite confident, and I know that I will not actually experience this pain and suffering, for those who actually break the five precepts. Because for me, I observe my five precepts well, I guard my virtue well. Therefore, I do not actually have this fear, I have the confidence, that I will not experience this pain, because I actually observe, my five precepts well. Okay, so this is the first pleasure, and first joy, And of course, the second pleasure and joy, is actually when this wise man actually sees this robber culprit being caught, and then being subjected to a lot of this, punishment, and just like what I described earlier, in terms of all this evil, all this punishment, in terms of the feet being cut, being decapitated, being put in all these sufferings in the boiling pot, and all this, being decapitated by swords and on axes and all this. So this wise man thinks, because I do not, actually do, these evil deeds and observe my five precepts well, therefore, I do not have to fear, about this punishment being inflicted upon me. I have no fear, therefore I have this joy, welling up in me, so that's the second happiness, the second joy, that this wise man actually experiences, and of course, again, the third joy that this wise man experiences is remember the simile that the Buddha gave about this great mountain, when the sun shines on the great mountain, then the shadow actually covers the entire earth, so it's the same thing as well, when this wise man, when he rests, and he takes a rest, and his mind becomes calm, when he's sitting in a chair or on the ground, then all the good actions that he has done, all flash back to him, all the good recollections of the good things he has done. For example, I've done donations, I've actually performed deeds of dana, I've helped those who are in need, I've helped, the Buddha Sasana, I actually help, the monks in terms of, service, I provide them with food, lodgings, medicine, and I also observe, my five precepts, and also I don't do the 10 unwholesome actions, the do charitas. I also observe my 8 precepts, and 10 precepts, on certain days, and also guard my mind, just like the Buddha says, just like a well-thatched roof, once the roof is well thatched, then the wall doesn't get soiled, so the mind is actually very important for us to watch, and you must watch and guard your mind, so I always guard my mind. Because of that, because of guarding my mind, I know every single intention that arises in my mind, the sankhara. I know, before I even act on the intention, I'm able to restrain myself. Self-restraint is there, and because of that, I perfect, and I actually improve on my sila. So this sila and bhavana actually help, each other. It's not just that sila, it's about body. Actually, observing sila also, concerns the mind as well. So if you do all this, when you are sitting down in a room, quiet, and when you actually say meditate, and we try to calm yourself, by doing anapanasati, that's when all these images will come back to you, that you have done a lot of good deeds, and you feel very happy. Sometimes you even feel tears welling up in you, that you have done all these good deeds. It's not the tears of fear, but tears of joy and happiness, that you have done all these things, and you help a lot of people. This is the kind of spiritual happiness, not the worldly happiness, but spiritual happiness that surpasses everything else. So that's why the Buddha says, uh, when he's actually resting on this ground, his good bodily and verbal mental conduct covers him and overspread him. The wise things that the wise man thinks that I have not done what is evil, I have not done what is cruel, I have not done what is wicked and unwholesome. When I pass away, I shall go to the destination of those who have not done evil. And he does not sorrow, grieve, lament. He does not weep, beating his breast. And this is the third kind of pleasure that the wise man feels here and now. So it's actually the converse of the fool. This wise man actually feels the three kinds of happiness and joy. The spiritual joy that you actually that you actually experience. And the wise man who has given himself over to good conduct, by body, speech, and mind, on the dissolution of the body, reappears and has happiness destination even in hell. And then the Buddha, goes on by actually describing how exquisite the enjoyment in this Sugati Bhumi is, in this heaven. Of course, we don't know how wonderful heaven is, but the Buddha is giving us some idea how wonderful and how refined, how enjoyable, how intense the pleasure is, in experienced by the devas in heaven. It's something that we cannot imagine as human beings. That's why there was one sutta when the devas are actually asked, whether you want to come back, to the human and enjoy, the human happiness. The devas say, thanks, but no thanks. I'd rather stay back in heavens. You can enjoy your human pleasure, but I have got, more exquisite enjoyment, in heavens. You can actually keep your human enjoyment, but I'd rather be in heaven. So that's what, how great, how intense the pleasure is for those in heaven. See, then the Buddha is saying here, were it rightly speaking to be said anything that is utterly wished for, utterly desired, utterly agreeable, means can you if there's anybody who says what is something that is really utterly agreeable, that's really something that is that everybody is wishes for, that is utterly enjoyable, utterly desirable, utterly wished for, the Buddha says it is of heaven that you can brightly speak so, so much so it's hard to find a simile for the happiness of heaven. Then when this was said, a bhikkhu actually asked the Blessed One, but Bhante, can a simile be given? Can you give us a simile so that we know how wonderful, heaven is? It can be, bhikkhu, the Blessed One said, bhikkhu, suppose there is this wheel-turning monarch, this universal monarch, this universal monarch is a king that rules over the entire world. Everybody respects this universal monarch. And this universal monarch, is somebody, who is really blessed, who possesses the seven treasures, and four kinds of success, because of that experiences joy, and pleasure, and what are these seven treasure? I'll just run through with you. Here, a head anointed noble king has bathed his head on the Uposatha day of the 15th, means the 15th day of the lunar calendar. He actually observed the Uposatha day and ascended to the upper palace chamber for the Uposatha. There appears to him the divine wheel treasure with his 1,000 spokes. This divine wheel treasure is like a divine wheel, but this divine wheel is actually has a lot of treasure in it. And it has got his spokes, like entire and nave and complete every aspect, like a wheel. It's got these spokes and tire, and it's full of treasure. On seeing it, the noble king thing does. Now it has been heard by me that when a head anointed noble king has bathed his head on Oppo Saturday or the 15th day, has ascended to the upper palace chamber, could this be a will? Could this actually be a will treasure, will treasure, could this actually be a will turning treasure, and am I actually a will turning monarch? Then this king king rises from his seat, and then he takes a water vessel in his hand and he sprinkles water on this will treasure, like a wheel. He sprinkles on it and saying, turn forward, good wheel treasure, triumph, good treasure. Then the wheel treasure turns forward, like a wheel, starts rolling, it's like a rolling, and this king is able to ride on this wheel, and this wheel actually turns in the eastern direction, and and the wheel turning monarch actually has got 4 constituent armies that follow him. And in the whatever region the wheel treasure pauses, there the wheel turning monarch took up his abode with his 4 constituent army. Then the king, when he reaches the east, he'll tell the people there, he tell the king in the east side, that great king, you should not actually kill, you should not steal, you should not actually perform sexual misconduct, and you should not speak falsehood, and you should not drink intoxicants. And so this wheel turning monarch actually tells the kings in the eastern direction, you must observe your 5 precepts. And the opposite kings in the east direction submit to the wheel turning monarch. And those opposite kings, they actually subscribe, and they actually bow to him as the king. Then the wheel this wheel treasure, then plunges into the eastern ocean and emerges again. Means that this wheel then plunges into the ocean, and comes out again, and it again turns forward, rolling in the southern direction, and again, he again tells the people, in the south, in the southern ocean, and then he comes out again, and then he also goes to the west, and then he goes to the west, and also he comes up with the, in the ocean again, and from the ocean again, and then he tells those kings in the south and the west, that you have to observe the 5 precepts, and those kings also then subscribe to this wheel turning monarch. And then after he has actually done, of course, the same, in the north as well, he also goes there, on this wheel turning, this wheel turning treasure. And then he also tells the king in the north, please, you have to observe your 5 precepts. And again, then he also plunges into the ocean in the north and comes out again. So it's a very powerful, this wheel turning monarch, universal monarch, And then this wheel turning monarch triumphs over the earth to the ocean, and then he goes back to his royal capital, and then he actually once he reaches the royal capital, you see, then he again, the Buddha says he has got these 7 treasures, and then the first treasure is what? The elephant treasure appears to the wheel turning monarch. You see, this universal monarch has got this first treasure. He's got 7 treasures. The first treasure is what? Is the elephant treasure. This elephant treasure is all white. This elephant, it's all white with 7 fold stance, with supernormal powers, and this elephant can fly through the air. And maybe like the cartoon we see, the Bambi, this flying elephant, maybe the cartoon got the idea from this sutta, flying through the air. The king of the elephant names Uposatha. On seeing him, the wheel turning monarch mind has confidence in him. It would be wonderful to ride in the elephant if he would just if he would undergo training. Then the elephant treasure undergoes taming, just like a fine thoroughbred elephant, well tamed for a long time. And so it happens that the wheel turning monarch, when testing the elephant treasure, mounts him in the morning. After traversing the whole earth to the edge of the ocean, he returns to royal capital to take his morning meal. So which means, what it means here, that this universal monarch, he actually trains this elephant that can fly through the air, got supernormal power, and he actually rides the world, using this flying elephant. Then this horse treasure appears to the wheel turning monarch. So other than the flying elephant, he also has a flying horse, and this horse is all white, but raven black head, means his head is black, but the whole body is white. And with mane, this horse has got mane like munja grass, with supernormal power as well, and he can fly through the air. And actually, the king, this universal king, names this horse Valahaka, means thundercloud. See how detailed the Buddha can describe all this. On seeing him, and of course, the Buddha sutta goes on by saying that this universal monarch trains this flying horse, and then he rides this flying horse and goes around the earth and to the ocean and come back to the capital again. Then this is the third, right? Then the fourth, and then this king actually has got jewel treasure. The jewel treasure is what? Fine barrel of purest water. It's like this jewelry called beryl. It's purest. It's got 8 faceted barrel and well cut.
Now the radiance of the jewel treasure spreads, around for a whole league. The radiance can reach all the way to 7 kilometers, And it just so happens that when the wheel-turning monarch is testing the jewel treasure, he draws up his 4 constituent army and mounts the jewel on top of his banner and sets forth in darkness and gloom of the night. Means he rides this he goes around with his army, with this treasure, and the treasure actually illuminates the whole place, like as if it's daytime, even though it's night, but it's like a daytime, And again, this is the 4th treasure, right? Then the 5th treasure actually is that what? The woman treasure. This universal monarch has got woman treasure, This this is like the universal monarch's female companion, like his spouse, like his wife. This wife is beautiful, calmly graceful, possessing a supreme beauty of complexion, extremely beautiful. Neither too tall or too dark, neither too slim or too stout, neither too dark or too fair, surpassing human beauty, but without reaching the divine beauty, very much more beautiful than human, but still a bit short, still below the divine beauty, Then the touch of woman treasure is such that it's like a tough and couple, means when this woman touches you, it's like cotton, it's like tough of couple, her fingers are just like cotton wool, And when it's cooler, her limbs are warm. It means when the weather is cool, when you touch her, or when she touches you, you can feel her limbs are warm. And when it's warm, her limbs are cool, From her body, the scent of sandalwood comes forth. It means you can smell sandalwood coming from her, And from her mouth, the scent of lotus. Wow, such a wonderful companion to have, such a wonderful wife. She rises before this universal monarch and retires after him. She's eager to serve, agreeable in conduct and sweet in speech. She's never unfaithful to the wheel-turning monarch, even in thought. How much more in body, Such is the woman treasure, Then there's a 4th, right? Then the 5th, then then the 5th one, you see the steward treasure. The steward treasure is where actually this steward, one of his somebody like his guard, he's some guard who actually helps him, who looks after him. This guard is very special. He actually has this divine eye, and he's able to see, whatever that is required. He is able to see hidden treasure, by using his divine eye. So he says, Sire, please remain at ease. I shall take care of your monetary affairs. So as it happens, when the wheel-turning monarch is testing this steward treasure, right, he actually goes on a boat into the Ganges River, and then he actually tells this steward treasure, I want gold, here and now, in this river. Then this steward tells him, oh, actually, I can go to the other side, and get the gold for you. But then this king say, no, I want the treasure, I want the gold here and now, Then this steward treasure, is able to plunge into the water, and draw up put a pot full of gold bullion and tells this king that is this enough? Is this enough? Then the king said, oh, okay, this is enough, Okay, and then the 7th treasure is what? The counselor treasure appears, where this king actually has got this wise and shrewd and sagacious counselor, and he's able to guide, the king, what should be done, what should not be done, should you actually, how should you decide, when somebody actually, among your palace, who should be promoted, who should be dismissed, this counselor treasure is able to guide, this wheel-turning monarch. So you see, you have got 7 treasures, and then don't know why somehow it stopped. Anyway, other than these 7 treasures, there's also 4 kinds of success that the universal this was universal monarch, actually has, that you actually can read this sutta by yourself. There's this 7 kinds of success, in terms of the success that he has. That this universal monarch is very handsome, very graceful, and he actually has the blessings of beauty, long life, So, and this 4 kinds of success and these 7 treasures actually, accompany this the wheel turning monarch. Okay, so anyway, this sutta actually continues, based on what I can remember, okay, this sutta actually continues by the Buddha actually giving again the example, of this stone, that he actually takes, takes up in his hand, and compared to the great mountain. So the Buddha says, actually, the enjoyment that this wheel turning monarch actually has by having these 7 treasures and 4 success, the Buddha says that the enjoyment that he has compared to the celestial happiness and enjoyment, it's just like the stone compared to the the Himalayan mountains, the king of the mountains. So that's why the Buddha says that this being reborn, in the heavenly celestial beings, celestial realms, the happiness is actually way surpasses any enjoyment that anybody can imagine. Even so much so that this treasure and the success of the universal monarch is really nothing compared to the pleasure in the celestial realms that which are enjoyed by the devas. So much so it's like comparing a stone compared to the Himalayan mountain. So from this MN129, we can actually see the Buddha has actually defined who a fool and who a wise man is, and what are the characteristics of a fool and a wise man, and as well as the Buddha has described in such graphic details in terms of the suffering, in the hell, in the animal kingdom, and also the intense pleasure, and joy, and in the kind of enjoyment, so refined and so exquisite in the celestial realms, that so much so that the enjoyment by this universal monarch with having 7 treasures and 4 success, it's just like a small stone compared to the great Himalayan mountains. So you can imagine, that the enjoyment there, in the celestial realm is really something that's really desirable and agreeable. And so, that's why the Buddha actually, has given us a wake up call, like a sounding bell to us, that, whether you, whatever, whether you actually, whichever direction that you want to move, from the current life, whether it is to descend downwards, into the woeful plains, where enter suffering, and if you want to come back again, to be a human, or even into the heavens, then it's just like it's going to even take longer than this blind turtle, being put his head through the one whole yoke, and whether you want to be there or whether you actually want to ascend up to the heaven, into the heavenly realms, into the Sugati Bhumi, it's very much entirely it's your choice, it's in your hands, So that's why the Buddha says, everything, lies within you. This fathom long body of yours, everything is within you. Your intention, is actually going to be the deciding factor, where you want to be. So whether you want to be a fool or whether you want to be a wise man, the decision is entirely up to you. So I will urge you, with the coming new year, we let's make the resolve, to increase our wisdom, to increase our resolve, to actually practice the Dhamma, in accordance, what the Blessed One has actually taught us, to ensure, that we actually increase, our wisdom, um, um, of course, to do this, we have to make sure, like I always mentioned before, the very first building block is to make sure that, you safeguard and you guard your virtues, the 5 precepts, and also, not just the 5 precepts, but make sure you also observe and do not commit any of the 10 unwholesome actions, the 10 ducharitas, especially your speech, the tongue, may be the smallest body organ compared to the rest, but it is capable of much more unwholesome actions than the other parts of the body. 4 unwholesome actions, compared to the rest. So you have to make sure you guard yourself. Make sure you only utter good speech. And do not actually slander others. Do not be you utter harsh speech. Do not actually do not gossip, especially in malicious ways, and falsehood, to be avoided, and to make sure you do not commit all this, and then make sure that you do not do not kill, do not steal, make sure you do not have commit sexual misconduct, 343 and your mind as well, and make sure you observe your 8 precepts on opposed Saturdays, as much as you can, because that actually increases your chances of being reborn in the celestial realms. Of course, I sometimes hear people say that we should not actually make resolution or do not actually wish to make to be reborn in the celestial realms. But I would disagree with that. Because I don't think we want to come back to these human realms. But judging from the kind of degradation that we see on Earth, environmental degradation, and the moral degradation. I don't think anybody wants to come back here again. I think it is good to make resolution to be reborn in the celestial realms, but to be in contact with the Dhamma, and to be able to practice the Dhamma, because there are many advantages, if you actually be reborn in the celestial realms, just look at all the suttas, the celestial realms, they have such great psychic powers, such great powers, they can just descend onto earth to see the Buddha in Jetavana, in the Anita Pindika's park in Jetavana monastery, at the speed of you extending your arm and flexing your arm, and drawing back your arm, just as the speed of just moving your arm, you're able to actually disappear from the heaven, and appear, in Jetavana monastery. Can you imagine how wonderful it is? The kind of opportunity you have to actually listen to the Dhamma, to meet the Buddha, and because of a psychic power, you're able to see, to know, which monks are actually well practiced, which monks are actually not well practiced, and you're able to practice accordingly. So you can use all these powers you have, as devas, to your advantage to practice the Dhamma. And who knows, maybe when the next Buddha comes, Metteyya Buddha comes, you could be one of the contingent of devas who listen to his Dhamma, and you could become a Sotapanna, and you become an Arahant straight away, even when you are in the heavens. So I would urge all of you, to be wise, and practice in accordance with Dhamma, and guard your mind, practice, the contemplation of non-self, by practicing what the Buddha called the Kayagata Sati, by actually watching your mind, and also contemplating, all the sankharas, in terms of non-self, and also seeing, impermanence, and suffering, so once you're able to see all this anatta nature, which is the jewel crown of the Buddha's teaching, and then you're able to ascend into your spiritual development, and slowly, you'll be able to get out of samsara, but the first thing first is, make sure, that you develop your wisdom, and and avoid, association, with fools. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brother Loo, for today's sharing. So this morning we have spent some wholesome time participating in the puja and listening to the sharing by Brother Loo. Now let's dedicate those accrued merits that we have done to all beings, whether they are seen or unseen. Akasata ca Bhummata Devanaga Mahidika Punyang tam anumoditva Chiram Rakantu Loka Sasanang Ettavata ca Amhehi Sampadang Punya Sampadang Sabbe Deva Sabbe Bhuta Sabbe Satta Anumodantu Sabba Sampatti Siddhya Idang me nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Idang me nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Idang me nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. And aspirations. Imina punya kammena mame bala samagamo satang samagamo hotu yava nibbana pattiya. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you everyone for watching. For other videos, please visit the links below. Bye bye for now. See you all again next week.